Once my book entered her hands, after all, everything about it belonged to her, and never again to me. Recognizing this reality that the reaction doesn't belong to you is the only sane way to create. If people enjoy what you've created, terrific. If people ignore what you've created, too bad. If people misunderstand what you've created, don't sweat it. And what if people absolutely hate what you've created? What if people attack you with savage vitriol, and insult your intelligence, and malign your motives, and drag your good name through the mud? Just smile sweetly and suggest as politely as you possibly can that they go make their own fucking art. Then stubbornly continue making yours. We were just a band. Because, in the end, it really doesn't matter that much. Because, in the end, it's just creativity. Or, as John Lennon once said about the Beatles, we were just a band. Please don't get me wrong. I adore creativity. And of course I revere the Beatles. I have dedicated my entire life to the pursuit of creativity, and I spend a lot of time encouraging other people to do the same, because I think a creative life is the most marvelous life there is. Yes, some of my most transcendent moments have been during episodes of inspiration, or when I'm experiencing the magnificent creations of others. And, yes, I absolutely do believe that our artistic instincts have divine and magical origins, but that doesn't mean we have to take it all so seriously, because in the final analysis I still perceive that human artistic expression is blessedly, refreshingly non-essential. That's exactly why I love it so much. Radiation canaries? Do you think I'm wrong? Are you one of those people who believe that the arts are the most serious and important thing in the world? If so, my friend, then you and I must part ways right here. I offer up my own life as irrefutable evidence that the arts don't matter as much as we sometimes trick ourselves into believing they do. Because let's be honest, you would be hard-pressed to identify a job that is not objectively more valuable to society than mine. Name a profession, any profession. Teacher, doctor, fireman, custodian, roofer, rancher, security guard, political lobbyist, sex worker, even the ever-meaningless consultant. Each is infinitely more essential to the smooth maintenance of the human community than any novelist ever was or ever will be. There was once a terrific exchange on the TV show 30 Rock that distilled this idea down to its irreducible nucleus. Jack Donaghy was mocking Liz Lemon for her utter uselessness to society as a mere writer, while she tried to defend her fundamental social importance. Jack? In a post-apocalyptic world, how would society even use you? Liz? Traveling bard. Jack, in disgust. Radiation canary. I think Jack Donaghy was right, but I do not find this truth to be dispiriting. On the contrary, I find it thrilling. The fact that I get to spend my life making objectively useless things means that I don't live in a post-apocalyptic dystopia. It means I am not exclusively chained to the grind of mere survival. It means we still have enough space left in our civilization for the luxuries of imagination and beauty, and emotion and even total frivolousness. Pure creativity is magnificent expressly because it is the opposite of everything else in life that's essential or inescapable: food, shelter, medicine, rule of law, social order, community and familial responsibility, sickness, loss, death, taxes, etc. Pure creativity is something better than a necessity, it's a gift. It's the frosting. Our creativity is a wild and unexpected bonus from the universe. It's as if all our gods and angels gathered together and said, "It's tough down there as a human being, we know. Here, have some delights." It doesn't discourage me in the least, in other words, to know that my life's work is arguably useless. All it does is make me want to play. High stakes versus low stakes. Of course, it must be said there are dark and evil places in the world, where people's creativity cannot simply stem from a sense of play, and where personal expression has huge and serious repercussions. If you happen to be a dissident journalist suffering in jail in Nigeria, or a radical filmmaker under house arrest in Iran, or an oppressed young female poet struggling to be heard in Afghanistan, or pretty much anybody in North Korea, then it is the case that your creative expression comes with extreme life or death stakes. There are people out there who bravely and stubbornly continue to make art despite living under god-awful totalitarian regimes, and those people are heroes, and we should all bow down to them. But let's be honest with ourselves here. That ain't most of us. In the safe world in which you and I most likely live, the stakes of our creative expression are low. Almost comically low. For instance, if a publisher dislikes my book, they may not publish my book, and that will make me sad, but nobody's going to come to my home and shoot me over it. Likewise, nobody ever died because I got a bad review in the New York Times. The polar ice caps will not melt any faster or slower because I couldn't figure out how to write a convincing ending to my novel. Maybe I won't always be successful at my creativity, but the world won't end because of that. Maybe I won't always be able to make a living out of my writing, but that's not the end of the world either, because there are lots of other ways to make a living besides writing books, and many of them are easier than writing books. And while it's definitely true that failure and criticism may bruise my precious ego, the fate of nations does not depend upon my precious ego. Thank God. So let's try to wrap our minds around this reality. There's probably never going to be any such thing in your life or mine as an arts emergency. That being the case, why not make art? Tom Waits chimes in. Years ago, I interviewed the musician Tom Waits for a profile in GQ magazine. I've spoken about this interview before, and I will probably speak about it forever, because I've never met anyone who was so articulate and wise about creative living. In the course of our interview, Waits went on a whimsical rant about all the different forms that song ideas will take when they're trying to be born. Some songs, he said, will come to him with an almost absurd ease, like dreams taken through a straw. Other songs, though, he has to work hard for, like digging potatoes out of the ground. Still other songs are sticky and weird, like gum found under an old table, while some songs are like wild birds that he must come at sideways, sneaking up on them gently, so as not to scare them into flight. The most difficult and petulant songs, though, will only respond to a firm hand and an authoritative voice. There are songs, Waits says, that simply will not allow themselves to be born, and that will hold up the recording of an entire album. Waits has, at such moments, cleared the studio of all the other musicians and technicians, so he can have a stern talking to with a particularly obstinate song. He'll pace the studio alone, saying aloud, "Listen, you. We're all going for a ride together. The whole family's already in the van. You have 5 minutes to get on board, or else this album is leaving without you." Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you have to let it go. Some songs just aren't serious about wanting to be born yet, Waits said. They only want to annoy you, and waste your time, and hog your attention perhaps while they're waiting for a different artist to come along. He has become philosophical about such things. He used to suffer and anguish over losing songs, he said, but now he trusts. If a song is serious about being born, he trusts that it will come to him in the right manner, at the right time. If not, he will send it along its way, with no hard feelings. Go bother someone else, he'll tell the annoying song that doesn't want to be a song. Go bother Leonard Cohen. Over the years, Tom Waits finally found his sense of permission to deal with his creativity more lightly, without so much drama, without so much fear. A lot of this lightness, Waits said, came from watching his children grow up and seeing their total freedom of creative expression. He noticed that his children felt fully entitled to make up songs all the time, and when they were done with them, they would toss them out like little origami things or paper airplanes. Then they would sing the next song that came through the channel. They never seemed to worry that the flow of ideas would dry up. They never stressed about their creativity, and they never competed against themselves. They merely lived within their inspiration, comfortably and unquestioningly. Waits had once been the opposite of that as a creator. He told me that he'd struggled deeply with his creativity in his youth because, like many serious young men, he wanted to be regarded as important, meaningful, heavy. He wanted his work to be better than other people's work. He wanted to be complex and intense. There was anguish, there was torment, there was drinking, there were dark nights of the soul. He was lost in the cult of artistic suffering, but he called that suffering by another name: dedication. But through watching his children create so freely, Waits had an epiphany. It wasn't actually that big a deal. He told me, "I realized that, as a songwriter, the only thing I really do is make jewelry for the inside of other people's minds. Music is nothing more than decoration for the imagination. That's all it is." That realization, Waits said, seemed to open things up for him. Songwriting became less painful after that. Intracranial jewelry making. What a cool job. That's basically what we all do, all of us who spend our days making and doing interesting things for no particularly rational reason. As a creator, you can design any sort of jewelry that you like for the inside of other people's minds, or simply for the inside of your own mind. You can make work that's provocative, aggressive, sacred, edgy, traditional, earnest, devastating, entertaining, brutal, fanciful, but when all is said and done, it's still just intracranial jewelry making. It's still just decoration. And that's glorious. But it's seriously not something that anybody needs to hurt themselves over, okay? So relax a bit, is what I'm saying. Please try to relax. Otherwise, what's the point of having all these wonderful senses in the first place? The central paradox. In conclusion, then, art is absolutely meaningless. It is, however, also deeply meaningful. That's a paradox, of course, but we're all adults here, and I think we can handle it. I think we can all hold two mutually contradictory ideas at the same time without our heads exploding. So let's give this one a try. The paradox that you need to comfortably inhabit if you wish to live a contented creative life goes something like this. My creative expression must be the most important thing in the world to me if I am to live artistically, and it also must not matter at all if I am to live sanely. Sometimes you will need to leap from one end of this paradoxical spectrum to the other in a matter of minutes, and then back again. As I write this book, for instance, I approach each sentence as if the future of humanity depends upon my getting that sentence just right. I care because I want it to be lovely. Therefore, anything less than a full commitment to that sentence is lazy and dishonorable. But as I edit my sentence, sometimes immediately after writing it, I have to be willing to throw it to the dogs and never look back. Unless, of course, I decide that I need that sentence again after all, in which case I must dig up its bones, bring it back to life, and once again regard it as sacred. It matters. It doesn't matter. Build space in your head for this paradox. Build as much space for it as you can. Build even more space. You will need it. And then go deep within that space, as far in as you can possibly go, and make absolutely whatever you want to make. It's nobody's business but your own. This is the end of Chapter 3 of Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. Please listen to this recording minimum 3 times for better and long-term results. If you liked this recording, please comment and share it with your friends and loved ones. Stay tuned for listening more books like this. Thank you and good luck.